And today, I want to talk about something that I'm passionate about. Well, something else that I'm passionate about. Um, there has been these ridiculous debates about which is better. Is it Western comics or is it Japanese manga? And this is interesting, and by interesting I mean stupid. Um, this debate is interesting to me because, well, for one thing, comics and manga are basically the same thing. The reason being is because, well, manga is basically just Japanese comics. I know, no duh, right? But that's not my problem with the debate. Obviously, comics and manga they have their differences, but they have multiple things in common, but are fairly different from each other. And the problem that I have with this debate in particular is that there's a lot of generalizing and there's a lot of like putting manga on a pedestal. Now, those are my two biggest problems with this debate. Just a lot of generalizing and a lot of putting manga on a pedestal. It gets really old really quickly. Um, so I'm sure you can imagine that this is going to be quite the discussion. So yeah, let's get into it. So this debate has been raging for a very long time, and the reason being is because there's been a pretty big drop in quality when it comes to most American comics or Western comics. Um, of course, not all comics nowadays are bad. There are certainly good ones, but obviously there's been a drop in quality. I'm not gonna say whether it's a major drop in quality. That's for you to decide. Um, but everybody has basically said that yeah, there's been a huge drop in quality when it comes to Western comics, um, and this is for a multitude of reasons. Either the writers are just not that good at writing characters, or maybe the artists aren't that good, or maybe they're not doing their job right, or I don't know. There's multiple factors that definitely go into this. Maybe they're not writing compelling characters. Maybe they're not writing compelling stories. Maybe you're just not a fan of their art, or maybe their art isn't that good. I don't really know. It all really depends, right? Either that, or it's just someone who doesn't know how to do the job properly, and they got the job anyway, despite the fact that um, they either don't have experience or because they're just not very good at either creating characters or creating interesting worlds. Um, or again, their art is just I don't know okay or whatever. Um, or maybe they're just an unlikable person, but whatever. Anyway, the point is that yeah, there's a drop in quality with Western comics, and a lot of people have been praising manga as if it's the greatest thing ever. Now, I want to tell you something about myself. I'm a fan of both Western comics and Japanese manga. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a huge fan. I don't know everything about the mediums, um, or medium, because again, comics, um, sorry, manga is just Japanese comics. Um, but yeah, my point is that I know a decent amount about both to see why this debate is very bad and very dumb, if we're being honest here. If we break it down, then you realize that this debate has a lot of problems within it. It has, and not even just necessarily generalizing and putting stuff on pedestals necessarily, but in general, the debate has a lot of problems with it because not only is there just people saying really dumb stuff and really dumb critiques and bad critiques, but there's also just people assuming things. There's just people assuming that manga is just better and so on, in more ways than one. And if we're being honest here, in reality, that's not entirely true. Um, Now, where do I begin with this? Well, god dang it, I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna start with the putting manga on a pedestal. You could all you could also say that this is putting Japan on a pedestal, which I really don't want to do. Japan is not perfect. People make it seem as though it is, and it's really annoying because it's really not. Japan certainly has its problems like every other country. Japan, yeah, it has its pros, sure, but it definitely has its cons. But anyway, manga, yeah. Back to manga. So, one of the biggest problems that I have with this whole debate is the fact that people just assume that for some reason there's no political stuff in manga, or that the politics in manga are done better in what in their stories. Sorry, okay, man. The politics in manga are done better in that medium rather than American comics, right? And that's a whole nother deal. People have been going on political debates. And politics have always been a part of comics, whether you're from America or Japan or Europe, wherever. You can't really take politics out of comics because politics has been a part of comics since literally they started, since day one, since some of the first characters were ever created. Um, right. Anyway, a lot of people are right, just going on ridiculous political debates and acting like there's no politics in manga, or politics just do it right, or politics are just done more justice in manga overall, which I can not really agree with. The reason being is because, for one thing, there's a lot of political manga out there. Naruto is one of them. If you know anything about Naruto, you know that Naruto actually tends to get fairly political at times. The same thing goes for One Piece and Attack on Titan. Well, okay, everybody knows that Attack on Titan gets political. Um, well, everybody should know anyway. And then you have Full Metal Alchemist. Now that's a political anime as well. Um, the point is that, and oh, so all of these do politics fairly well, at least in my opinion. Maybe you don't think so, but I wouldn't really say that there's no politics in manga. Obviously, there's politics in manga. They just tend to do it differently, and I wouldn't really say that they automatically do it better than American comics. Hell, there's certainly American comics that actually have some good politics in them, even today. I would think. Um, Right. Also, back then as well, not every comic that has politics in it is necessarily bad. Heck, there's a way to write politics in a comic and do it well. There's still really good examples of this. There's still multiple good examples of this. Again, whether you're from America or whether you're from Japan, it doesn't really matter. Politics is a part of comics. They shouldn't be taken out of comics. However, you can weave politics into comics, and it depends on how you do it. Some do it better than others, some not so well at all, but that's just how it is. Um, and in my opinion, way too many people just put manga on a pedestal and make it seem like it's the best thing ever. Because, let's be real here, there's a lot of bad manga out there. May I remind everybody that Rent a Girlfriend exists, one of the worst manga out there. And that's only one of them. Alright? There's tons of actually bad and not so good manga out there. Alright? It'd be good if people could stop acting like every manga out there is the greatest thing ever, because they're not. There's a lot of bad manga out there. Yeah, there's good manga. Just like there's a lot of good manga, there's a lot of bad manga. Just like there's a lot of bad Western comics, there's a lot of good Western comics. And this is where the generalizing comes in. Um, Apparently every Western comic book company in the world is the worst comic company ever. They don't know how to write, they don't know how to draw or whatever, which is also really dumb. And it certainly does not help anyone's case when they argue this point unironically, or get into these ridiculous debates unironically, because most of the time they're just talking about Marvel and DC, who are the two biggest comic book companies in America. But over in Japan, they only really have one big manga company, and that's Shueisha. There isn't a whole lot of competition there, at least to my knowledge. It's just Shueisha. They only have Shueisha there. Shueisha is the biggest manga company, and that's it. They don't have another one. But over here in America, we have Marvel and DC. But there are multiple other comic book companies out there, like Image Comics, or Dark Horse Comics, Boom Comics, so on and so forth. It's awful that people just keep generalizing and making it seem as though all of these comic book companies are like the worst thing ever, right? All of these American comic book companies, oh, they're awful, right? It's so ridiculous because there's certainly cons that the comic book market certainly has in America, but not every American comic book company is awful or the worst. There's definitely been good comics from these companies, and also companies like IDW and so on. Um, there's actually a lot of really good comics from all of these different companies. Like, no matter where you look, if you go outside of your comfort zone and look besides Marvel and DC, who yes have a ton of problems, but not every comic that they write or make is the worst thing ever, um, you will see that there's actually a lot of actually really good stuff out there. Yeah, there's definitely bad stuff. There will always be bad stuff, but not every comic that's not from Marvel and DC is the worst thing ever. Heck, if you read an indie comic, maybe you might like it, maybe you won't. I don't know. Um, but I would definitely say that there's way too much generalizing and grouping, like making it seem as though every comic book company in America is just awful and they can't write or draw or make interesting characters or interesting worlds, when that's not entirely true, right? There's just way too much generalizing going there. And it certainly doesn't help that there's never enough credit given to the artists. Though that's another problem for another day, but these artists, they work hard. Art is not easy, far from it. They much like manga artists, they put their life on the line to create interesting characters, interesting worlds, interesting storylines, and interesting series, so on and so forth. And they definitely don't get the credit that they deserve half the time, and they really should. Um, but yeah, there's just way too much generalizing. Most comic book companies in America, sure, they're definitely not perfect. They have their cons, but they definitely have their pros. There's multiple comic book companies again like IDW or Dark Horse and Image and Boom that again they have their characters. Maybe you don't like them. They have their stories. Maybe you don't like them. I don't know. Right. Honestly, I definitely think that you should try comics from all of these different companies, and the same thing goes for manga. Try multiple different manga. Not all of them are the best thing ever. Not all of them um, handle politics the best way. Heck, not all of them even have interesting characters or interesting worlds or or interesting stories if we're being honest here. But it'd be great if we could stop assuming, stop the generalizing, stop the BSing, and um, just stop making it seem as though every manga is the greatest thing ever because it's clearly not. And let's make it. And please stop with the every American comic book company is the worst thing ever or whatever and all that. Because it's like, well, no, that's certainly not true. Not every comic run is going to be great. Not every comic run is going to be bad either. You know, and the same thing goes for manga. Not every manga is going to be the best thing ever. So yeah, honestly, that's all I got. Honestly, there's still a lot of stuff that I could go into this, but I want to stop it here. Though, if you do potentially want a part two to this video, I could make a video about that, talking about some other stuff. Um, I don't know. Maybe I could get more specific about politics and whatnot. But yeah, if you agree with anything that I had said in this video, then please say so in the comment section. If you disagree, please say so. And what are your thoughts on this debate? Do you think it's really dumb, like I do? Because let's be real here, it is. Or do you not think it's dumb? And what are the many nuances that have been lost to you? Because this debate has practically no nuance in it half the time, if we're being honest. There's just right. There's some nuance, sure, but most of the time it's not. Yeah, it's just really annoying. But anyway, yeah. Um, if you want all the important stuff, do not forget to check the description. It's important, as per usual. Um, and of course, I'm gonna be making a community post about this video later. Um, participate with that if you can. You don't really have to if you don't want to. Um, and if you want more of me, then you know exactly what to do. I won't hold your hand through the process. Yeah. King out. Have a nice day, people.